Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingman podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
This episode of the Wingmen podcast is brought to you by Leupold Optics. You know, I've been running Leupold Optics for a long time on the big game side of things, and I love the performance and the quality of that brand. But when Leupold brought performance eyewear into the mix a couple of years ago, I thought I'd seen it all, but I was wrong. That performance eyewear from Leupold keeps my eyes protected. It helps me with my target acquisition with a crisp, clear sight picture. And guys, I got to be honest with you, I'm stoked to be partnered with a company like Leupold. So for all your optics needs, give Leupold a look. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Wingman podcast. I've got my wingman back on, Josh Lancaster of Red Flats Retrievers. And welcome back, dude.
It's good to be back.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, yeah.
You've been chasing around. So Josh does some really cool stuff with youth outdoor ministry. And you've been doing some late season mule deer hunts with some kids. We're the Waterfowl podcast, but I love that you donate your time. So
yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I work with two organizations. One's Outdoor Dream Foundation, which is out of South Carolina. And then me and a buddy of mine started Wyoming Dream Hunts here in Wyoming. And so we take terminal ill, life-threatening disease kids on a hunt of a lifetime. And we just got back from Du Bois. Both the young men, one was 14, one was 17, and both of them are in remission of cancer right now. And coming from South Carolina and Florida, the deer are not the same.
About twice the size.
Not just in body, but in horns.
Yeah.
And so
you're hunting mule deer.
Mule deer, yep.
And it's a migration. It's a late season. It's a migration hunt. It's arguably, guys, the best mule deer tag in the state of Wyoming.
And it is the hardest tag to draw.
It is the most difficult tag to draw. It's like sheep odds.
Yes.
For residents. Non-residents, it's ridiculous amounts of preference points.
Yes.
But if you can pull the tag, it's a once-in-a-lifetime hunt of a lifetime experience.
Yes. So
these kids get to do it.
These kids, I mean, such a blessing. So Wyoming Game and Fish, they started a ability. There's a couple people that are involved with it, but they get commissioner tags. And so literally, if we have property we can use or public property, which is like Du Bois, we literally just get the tags, get the kids in the season, and then we hunt.
That's phenomenal.
These kids never would have the opportunity.
No.
And to be able to bless them, get them out of their situation that they're in, and to just love on them and give them an opportunity to go into God's creation and to just eat it up.
Your eyes just sparkle when you talk about this, Josh. And that's one of the reasons that I love spending time around you. Because you have a passion for this.
Yes, I do.
And you have a passion for kids and a passion for that ministry, and it's phenomenal.
I love it. And it's not, I'm going to say this, I'm not a Bible beater. When the opportunity arises,
sure,
we rock and roll and share the gospel with one another. And, that goes back to my past of, not that I was beaten with the Bible, but there's ways to present the gospel. Yep. And, I'm not one that I'm just going to preach at you, but if an opportunity comes up,
right,
that's where I open the door.
And that's one of the things that you and I both see eye to eye on.
Yes, we do.
I'm very strong in my beliefs.
Yes, you are.
But I'm not going to beat you over the head with it.
Exactly. And, everybody's different. Everybody has their own way of things coming about. So,
right.
No different with me and you. We keep each other accountable.
Yep.
Now, we both have different ways of doing that.
Well, iron sharpens iron, but it's not all the same. It's not all the same alloy.
Amen. Exactly. But, you're exactly right. And just being able to, one, build the relationship. Yes, the animals are awesome that we're pursuing for these kids, but the relationships
right.
that we have. One of the boys from Florida, me and him just hit it off. And then another one, the other young man, he is actually an hour and a half from where I grew up in South Carolina. Like when he told me where he's from, I'm like, oh my goodness, you're home.
Yeah.
And so it's just really awesome. One, to change pace from working dog training
right.
to getting away. And it's such a great dynamic with me and my wife. We get to go on every year. This is our 4th year doing it. My partner and his wife come, and then me and my wife go.
So it's a total family style environment.
Exactly.
And you're in that country over there is stunning.
Oh man. Oh,
I mean, it's
5 minutes, you're in a totally different area.
It's gorgeous.
You go from badlands to mountains to wilderness.
Yep.
I mean, it's just there's so much of God's creation just out the window of your vehicle.
Yep.
But we were blessed on the first day. I mean, normally it doesn't happen that way.
That's a feast or famine hunt.
Yes,
for sure. Just because it's an awesome tag and it's the hardest tag to draw and it's the best hunt area doesn't mean there's going to be a giant mule deer around every bush. You know, we're talking mule deer here on a Wingmen podcast. We're going to get to the ducks, guys. Stay with us, but we're just catching up because it's been over a month since I've seen you.
Yeah, since we got together. So, you know, it's last year, I'm going to back up. We had 2 hunts in DuBois last year, and the migration was nothing.
Right.
You know, our weather, which we'll get into that into our Wingman.
Well, the weather leads into exactly why we're sitting down and recording this podcast, because we're going to rehash last year's last day of duck season.
Yep.
When we did finally get some weather and kind of saved the season for us.
Yes.
But also almost ended it because we had too much weather.
Correct.
But that's going to dovetail into the hunt video that this podcast will kind of work in tandem with. Yeah. We're going to work through that. But yeah, talk about the weather, because we're so weather dependent here for not just waterfowl, but everything.
Everything. And, you know, as we've talked in our previous podcast, the weather of this year has been rough.
Yeah.
For big game waterfowl.
Rough as in it's too warm.
Yes.
Too warm.
It is not our normal weather, I mean, at all. So, you know, last year we hunted and never saw any quality bucks, but the kids were happy with the bucks that we were seeing. Right. So both of them tagged out. This year was completely opposite. There were so many mule deer down. Now, there wasn't a ton of snow, but the first morning we go out to one spot and we're looking, we're passing on some 140s, 150 bucks. And then all of a sudden I look out and I'm like, oh my. There were 3 shooters together sparring over a bunch of does.
Right.
And I looked at one of the boys. I said, what do you think? And he goes, yeah. And I'm
never seen a deer like that.
Never seen a deer like that in his life. And, you know, just that excitement, you know, of just him not being able to even get a word out of excitement. But then we make a plan. We get out the truck about 500 yards, get him settled, boom.
And it's a perfect hunt for those kids, because you can make that hunt as hard or as easy as you want it to be. Easy is if you have access. There's some private land over there that those deer spend a lot of time on, like there is anywhere. But there's still a lot of national forests. There's a lot of state chunks over there that you can hunt on that tag. But if the deer aren't there, it can be rough.
Exactly.
And you get a situation like that where you get a young person who's maybe not going to be able to hike very far.
Correct.
Do those things. It can be a hard hunt, because if those deer are not where you can get them a kid to, it's tough.
Oh yeah. And so, you know, it makes it, you know, the places we hunt with these kids, it is kid friendly.
Yeah. Has to be.
You know, it has to be. Because taking a kid from South Carolina and Florida up a mile hike ain't happening in this elevation. I mean, I'm from there. I know you suck in pond water. I'm sorry, but I mean, I've hunted with you. You know, I still huff and puff a little bit. But
here's the deal about that, though. You can be in the best shape of your life. The human body is going to work hard at elevation or when there's a steep grade involved.
Yep.
It's about how fast you recover.
Correct.
And can you do a hard grind and then keep hunting?
Exactly.
Or are you wiped out for 2 days?
And it's no different with waterfowl. Some of the places we have to get into, it is not just pop out the truck and get in the blinds. Sometimes hunting public, you got to walk.
And a lot of the stuff around here is no joke.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To get into.
Correct. So, you know, but no, 2 successful hunts. The first morning, one young man just 500 yards. He missed the first shot. He was too excited.
Yeah.
But got back on the deer. He didn't even run off. Just shot again at 500, and just that's
the cool thing about the migration hunts.
Oh, there's no care in the world out of those bucks.
Those deer are migrating. They don't live in that area. They winter there.
Yep.
And it's during the rut.
Yes.
And mule deer during the rut take stupid to another level.
Yes, they do.
And then you factor in these deer are coming from the area around Yellowstone.
Yep.
So they don't see people hardly ever
No.
until they get where they winter and where they breed. And so these deer are pretty naive
Yep.
for the most part. Now, a big buck is still a big buck. He's been around 8 years.
Yep.
He knows the drill, and they can be a little more cagey. But we're not talking about highly pressured whitetails in the Midwest or the Southeast.
Well, with that area, they have a general season.
Yes.
But there's nothing there.
There's very few deer that live in
during
that country.
That time. Yep, exactly.
It's the same way here.
Yes.
We have very few deer that live here.
Yep.
We have a lot of deer that migrate into this country and winter here because as Wyoming goes, this is a banana belt.
Yep.
We don't get hard winters here. I'm looking at my brethren in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and they've gotten 5 feet of snow in certain areas since Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't see that.
No.
Not here.
So, huge blessing there, celebration with him. His smile was from ear to ear, just
Awesome.
of tickledness.
Awesome.
And we actually had to go to Lander after he killed his buck. We took it to a taxidermist down there. And the other young man's tag never was delivered to him.
Oh.
So we had to go to Lander Game and Fish, get a
off.
reprint. Yep. And we head back from Lander, which is about an hour. And we get back to the cabin, eat some lunch, go back out. We were tagged out by 4 o'clock.
Nice.
We were back to the cabin before dark.
Yep.
Everybody at the cabin was just kind of like, what are they doing back so early?
Oh, got another one.
Got another one.
Yeah.
And then it was just, after that was just a fellowship. And it
Perfect.
was just great time. So
that's awesome. Like I said, man, I can see the sparkle in your eyes. You light up when you talk about this stuff. And that leads us into talking about last year's last day of duck season.
Yep.
When we love hunting together.
Yes, we do.
And that sparkle comes out when we hunt together. That fellowship comes out. We had a great time. We love dogs. We love cold weather for ducks. We finally got it last year.
Yeah. And, going back a few months before that, our season last year
was brutal. It's like this one this year so far.
It is.
This season we've had, I've been scouting a lot, and there's just no birds.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say no birds, it's not like we have zero.
We have our local birds.
We have our local birds, and we have the remnant of the first push when we got some snow and some cold a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
But they're super stale. They're super cagey.
Yeah.
And there's just, the hunting isn't great right now.
Yeah.
You can scratch out some birds.
Yeah.
And I'm, keeping tabs on social media and what some of you guys are saying out there. It's tough for a lot of folks right now. It's not just here.
Yeah.
Weather pattern across the board is pretty warm and pretty dry.
Yeah.
So that makes for tough duck hunting because we don't have the birds.
Yeah.
We know where they are. And if we wanted to go 5 hours, 6 hours to the north, we might be able to get into some.
Yeah.
But life being what it is, I'm not chasing feeds and X's as much as I used to when I was young.
Nope.
There's family responsibilities and
a lot more going on.
I'm a family man waterfowler.
Yep.
And I'm not that young gun out there getting, burning through hundreds and hundreds of dollars of gas to kill birds. For you guys that are, good for you. I kind of miss those days, but I kind of don't at the same time.
And it comes to piles. Are we pile hunting or are we just having a good time of fellowship? And there's
times to do both.
There is.
And that was this hunt from last year.
Yeah.
We made a pile, but we had a good time doing it.
Yes, we did.
But the conditions that led into this hunt, that's why we're talking about this.
Yep.
Because it was all about the conditions. We went from having a lot of warm weather, virtually no birds,
a lot of open water.
And a lot of open water. I'm talking ponds, sloughs were still open.
Yeah.
Right now, at least those are frozen, so the birds have to be on the river for the most part.
Yeah.
There's some warm water stuff, but.
Yep.
This episode of the Wingman Podcast is brought to you by Cryptek. Guys, camouflage and quality hunting garments and apparel are vitally important to success in the field. You want to be out there when you want to be out there and for as long as you want to be out there. And you need high quality garments and clothing and gear that's going to keep you concealed at the same time. Cryptek's variety of camouflage patterns and the offerings of apparel that they bring to market are second to none. I love being partnered with that company. I love the shared ethos that we have. I love the shared values that we have. And I'm super proud to support a veteran-owned American company like Cryptek. We got a lot of weather in a very small window. It went from 40s and 50s during the day to at one point it was negative 50 degrees. And even our fast western rivers just about freeze solid when it's that cold.
Yep.
Thankfully, there wasn't a ton of snow that came with it, because if we got those temps with 2 feet of snow, our birds would be gone.
Oh, yeah.
They'd blow right on through, and whatever birds came in with that weather would just keep trucking.
Yep.
We didn't have the snow, so they could still feed in dry land.
Yeah.
A duck and a goose doesn't need a lot of water. No. They don't need near as much as you think. And there was one little slick going through the middle of that river. The rest of that river was frozen 2 feet thick of ice from the bank to the middle of the river. There's no place to set decoys other than setting them on ice. But more importantly, there's no place to put a dog in that river without killing it.
Correct.
Because if you put a dog in that, I mean, there was a wave train in front of the duck blind that was 5 or 6 feet tall because the ice jammed all that water into a 10-foot wide flow. And this is just a wave train.
Yeah.
4-foot, 5-foot waves going down that river because all that water is crammed into that small little spot. You're going to kill a dog if you put it in there.
Yes.
And a dog, especially a dog like Hondo, is going to go.
Oh, yeah.
He's not even going to think twice. He's going to go. And then how do you get him out?
Exactly.
You can't.
No.
And you're going to suck him under an ice shelf, and he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
So that brings its whole new set of challenges. You know, we can talk hypothermia, talk all these stuff. We're not hunting when it's 20 below.
No.
Unless I got a dry land feed.
Correct.
If I can find birds in a barley feed or a corn stubble field, then okay, let's hunt, because it's not dangerous for the dog to be out there in those temps.
Yep.
If they're conditioned to it.
Yes.
But it's untenable to put a dog in the water in those temperatures and with that much ice. You cannot do it if you care anything about your dog at all. So what are the options? Last day of season, I'm like, and there's birds. I mean, there were thousands of birds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we got to try.
Yeah.
I went down to the blind. The blind you guys have seen on a bunch of videos. It's our honey hole. It's our go-to.
Yeah.
And I started spudding.
Yeah.
With a tamping bar. I started breaking ice off. Our friend Tyler calls me, and he's like, "What are you doing, bud?" I was like, "I'm trying to make a duck hole." He's like, "You need some help?" I said, "Uh-huh." He shows up with waders on. I did not have waders on, which I wasn't planning on getting that close to the edge. I was just going to try to break away what I could and see if we can make a dent.
Yeah.
We started with a flow not much wider than this room, and I'm chipping away at it. He comes down with a chainsaw. We start breaking away ice, and I mean, we're breaking away 15 to 30 foot long chunks of ice that weigh 1,000 pounds or more than that. I mean, literally, he and I moved metric tons of ice that day. And we opened up a spot about 200 yards long to where a dog could touch bottom.
Yep.
To get its feet on the bottom and jump out. And I was like, I think this is doable.
Yeah.
I think we can hunt this. So we made a plan.
You called me up that afternoon.
Mm-hmm. We're hunting in the morning. You're like, what?
Yep. You said bring a dog and bring your gear, and let's try to kill some ducks.
Let's give it a try.
Yeah.
It's the last day, man.
Yep.
And we went down that morning, and the river had done the rest of the work for us.
Yep.
And it opened. By breaking free some ice, it gave that river some purchase on what was there.
Yeah.
And you and I moved, I think, 1 or 2 blocks
right off the rip just to get them out.
But other than that, we had a wide open. The river opened up in the night. It went from 30 below to 18 degrees above in like 2 days.
Yeah. And
it was all we needed to open a hole big enough to kill some birds.
Yeah.
And do it safely.
Yep.
The dogs had no issues. We had a phenomenal hunt.
Yes, we did.
It was awesome. It was just so much fun. But what, as a dog guy, because you're the pro, what are some of the concerns that situation, when I made that phone call to you, there was a little bit of trepidation in your voice.
Well, and you have mentioned it before, dog gets swept under an ice shelf. There's so many things. So one thing with the ice, so when it's that cold, we have ice chunks that are floating.
Yes.
Coming down river.
And they weigh hundreds of pounds.
And sometimes
so
you can't see them.
And
I mean, and you send a dog out in that, now there's the slush and everything. There's so many different variables. But for me as a dog guy, my dogs are worth more than a duck.
Oh, 100%.
And I know it's the exact same for you. And so when you were telling me about the conditions, I was just kind of like, no, we'll give it a whirl, but if it's not safe, I'm not going to send my dog.
Yep.
And for me, all of us want to kill ducks. We do. But you got to know.
Especially on the last day.
Oh, especially on the last day. But you got to know your limits.
Mm-hmm.
And one, not just your personal limit, but your dog's limit.
Yep.
So all of us have had young dogs, old dogs. I would not have done an old dog in that scenario at all. With it being as cold as it is, they start hurting.
It's interesting because we did take Mackinac on that hunt.
Yep.
And that hunt may very well be the last hunt that he ever does. Yep. Mackinac's heart's failing right now. He's lost a bunch of weight. I'm literally looking at the last days of his life right now.
Yep.
And watching that video, I'm watching a couple of retrieves he made, and I'm like, those are probably the last retrieves he's ever going to do.
Yeah. And, if he was your sole only dog,
right,
it would have been too much for him.
And but we had dog power that day.
We had dog power. We had 3 dogs. So we had Dara, Hondo, and Mac.
Yep.
And, having 3 dogs. Now, this is another great topic of just everybody says we did a podcast of know when to leave your dog at home.
Right.
For different scenarios, for that scenario of having an old dog and 2 younger dogs, it was perfect.
Yep. It worked out just fine.
It worked out just fine. But then other scenarios, our first duck hunt this year, 2 was about good enough.
Yeah.
We didn't need another dog.
No.
Especially that the birds weren't going to get away. We were in a pond. Would I have liked to bring my whole pack with me? Yeah, but that's not feasible right now. Just of discipline-wise, they are not at the obedience level that they should be.
Very few dogs can handle that much chaos.
Correct.
We'll get into it in another podcast about in-season dog management, basically. But, that scenario required some dog power for sure.
Exactly. And I think, with the dynamic of the 3, it was perfect.
Yep.
But going back to conditions, I mean, there's been times in the past that it is below 0 and we're running dogs, and all of a sudden you look over and your dog is absolutely frozen. Mm-hmm. I mean, iced up. And this is something me and you have talked about treats or food while hunting. Keep that motor going.
Yep.
I've done, I've killed some golden eyes, and I put the golden eyes on the smoker, and I'll have their breasts and just give them something to keep their motor going, keep them warm.
I learned that lesson the hard way with Mackinac when he was young. He got hypothermic on me once. Ice flows in the river, not dangerous ice flows, but the water was cold.
Yeah.
And he ended up we had a flurry of shooting and activity that limited us out.
Yeah.
And he was in the water a lot.
Yeah.
And he was young, and he went hypothermic on me. Yep. And it was a pretty easy fix, but it's scary.
Oh, yeah.
And then another time he went hypoglycemic on me. And that was when, with talking to my vet at the time, I realized I need to have some fuel for him.
Exactly.
I do not like hunting a dog on a full stomach.
Nope.
I don't feed my dogs before we hunt, especially if we're hunting something upland birds.
Yeah.
If I'm putting Hondo on the ground for pheasants, I do not feed him before that. I don't want his stomach full of food.
No.
It's hard on him.
Yep.
But as soon as we get home, he's had 45 minutes in the dog box to cool down.
Yep.
Body regulates itself. He gets fed.
Yeah.
Now water's a different story.
Yep.
Even when it's cold, you need to have water for your dog.
Correct.
Especially in a dry field scenario like hunting ducks or geese where they're doing wind sprints. Like I said, we'll hunt when it's below 0 in those conditions, but you still got to have water for your dog.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the dog power, back to the river conditions. How do you know when it's too much? When you look at it, now that situation was obvious because it's like you're not putting a dog in that slick.
Yep.
You're going to kill him.
Yep.
But there's other situations when it's cold and there's ice and there's snow, or when there's heat, which we see during the early season. How do you know when it's too much?
It's got to be time in the field. It's got to be experiencing, running through the things that you have done right and done wrong. No different with you saying that Mac went hyposemic and hypothermic. You know that now,
and I know what to look for.
And
now.
You know what to look for. It's no different with your kids. You see one eat something, and all of a sudden his face turns yellow. He's like, "Oh, wait a minute, no, that's green."
Yeah,
he's getting it. You have to see it. Unfortunately, you have to go through it before you know.
Right.
So back home, I had hounds, and I had one of our best hounds. His name was Chopper. I'll never forget him, but he would have seizures all the time. Ever since he was little, he would just all of a sudden get a seizure. So we get to the club, and all of a sudden I look, and he's wobbling. I'm like, oh, here we go. He's having a seizure. So I get in there with him. I help him get through it. But if I hadn't gone through that, I would never be able to go through helping another dog get through a seizure. Unfortunately, he passed away a year later. I wasn't around him when he had a seizure, and he passed away. But, it's going through those trials. We all go through them in life, not just in waterfowl, but in life in general.
Right.
Trials and tribulations of many kinds. And so if you don't experience those, you're not prepared for them. It's no different than our first duck hunt. We weren't prepared. We didn't have a good hide. It was,
it was a thrown together mess at the last second, and
we made some things happen.
Exactly.
And so I say that just if you are a dog person, you're going to go through situation scenarios.
Right.
And being able to overcome those things. A seizure dog, hypothermic. Every time you go out into the field, there's an opportunity for something to happen.
Yep.
A pheasant dog gets hung up in a wire. What do you do?
Right.
There's just so much, sending on that hunt. And you'll see in the video. So me and Todd, we're going to pick at each other a little bit. So mid-morning, we have a bunch of geese come through.
Yep.
And we get up, we bang away. I saw 2 birds hit the ground or water. Todd goes, "Oh, there's another one." "No, there's not." Tyler goes, "No, there's only 2." And Todd's like, "There's another one right on the other side of the river." And we're just like, okay, we didn't see it, whatever. So Todd sends his dog, and Hondo's gone for a few minutes. Bebopping.
When a dog is out of sight, time slows down real fast.
Yes, it does.
Because what is 30 seconds or a minute or two feels like 10 when you can't see your dog.
Exactly.
But in that scenario, he's just got to hunt.
Exactly. And having that hunt in a dog is just so important.
Yep.
But all of a sudden, Hondo comes popping out. There he is with a goose.
With a very live goose
in his mouth. And so, that scenario, Hondo knows. Hondo has been across. He has gone through. Todd can cast him to where he needs to go, and having that ability of trusting a dog to hunt, to find what we're after. Me and Tyler are over there. There ain't nothing over there. And then boom. And then Todd, "I told you guys."
Well, and you see it on the video.
Yeah.
That we knocked down 3 geese out of that flock.
Well, and that just goes back to tunnel vision.
Yes.
When we're hunting, the way I was taught how to hunt, pick a bird, kill it.
Yeah.
Don't try to see the whole flock. Pick a bird, kill it, mark it well so that you can help your dog find what you've killed.
Right.
Because there's been times, how many times a group of birds come through and it's just chaos.
Oh,
and everybody's just banging away and birds are flying out of the sky. It's and that comes with time also. Being seasoned, I would say, is to know what could possibly happen. Right. With your dogs or anything in that aspect.
Yeah, and I think there's a fine balance. When I had, I did a podcast several months back now with the Gun Dog Doc out of South Dakota.
Okay.
And you guys have probably seen him on social media. He's done a nice job growing his following, and I see a lot more of his stuff now. But he and I had a phenomenal podcast, and talking about, from a veterinarian, a very accomplished veterinarian, talking about being prepared in the field. But too many guys, especially, I'm going to pick on you upland guys a little bit here, And it's because upland dogs encounter more abuse. And I don't mean abuse like from their handlers. I mean just wear and tear abuse because it's more physically demanding hunting than waterfowl is. A dog's not stationary making marks and retrieves. A dog is hunting. And they're hunting through thick cover where there's hidden obstacles that can, pheasant hunting in Montana early November with Hondo, he's tearing around and the cover's thick. We're hunting a cattail slough and I'm trying to rein him in, trying to keep him slow, but it was the first hunt, we're 100 yards in and he goes flying through the grass and runs headlong into a great big stump. It was a cottonwood tree. There was a stump and there was a log and you couldn't see it. It was covered up in grass and he just, and he, it's Hondo. So he's like bounces off and I called him right over. So I'm like, dude, that's an impalement right there. Nope. He's fine.
Check him out. He's fine.
He still
bounces.
Yeah. He goes bouncing off and looking for more pheasants, but it could have been really, really bad. And upland guys deal with that all the time. And where I'm going with this is there's a fine line between having a full triage kit in your vest or your blind bag and having the ability to treat the dog quickly and get it to a vet. Where we are here and where most hunting takes place, whether it's upland hunting or waterfowl, you're usually within an hour of getting a dog to a vet. Having the ability to stabilize a dog, to treat a dog, to staunch bleeding, if there's bleeding, get it under control, and get that dog to a professional. Instead of trying to treat it in the field, a man's got to know his limitations.
Exactly.
And the best thing for your dog is most of the time getting it to a veterinarian and getting it the help it needs. Sometimes that's not an option, obviously, but knowing that situation. If you're hunting chuckers in Wyoming or Nevada and you're hours from the closest town, you want to have the ability to stitch up a dog, to staple up a dog, to save its life. But for most of us, the best practice is to stabilize that dog, get it to a veterinarian as fast as you possibly can.
Yes.
No different than on that hunt, I was keeping very close tabs on my dogs. Now, Mackinac, of course, because he's old, he was 11 at that time. He's 12 now. He was almost 12 on that hunt, and he could still go.
Yeah.
Hondo is a different animal because Hondo's the type of dog that'll just keel over dead on you. Because you won't know if there's anything wrong with him because there's no quit in that dog. And he's going to go full speed until he's dead. And so I have to watch him. Where Mackinac, I can tell. We're like, he's about done. Time to put him in the blind and just let him take a nap, hang out, and get petted.
Well, and another thing with water and being in that cold, we had buddy heaters going. And so if a dog, and that's being prepared. If a dog is in that point of hypothermic, boom, put that booger right in front of the...
Or quit.
Yeah.
If your dog is showing signs that if they stop shivering and they're not attentive to a situation anymore, Hondo will sit outside the blind. Dara will do the same thing where they're shivering. You see it in the video. You look at Dara and she's just shivering, but she's paying attention to what's going on. If she was curled up at your feet and shivering or not shivering, even worse, get your dog, go home and get them warm. Put them in a warm shower. Get them some food when they can handle it, some warm stuff, and get that body temperature back up. In the case where, thinking back to where Mackinac got hypothermic, it wasn't much different than the day we were out there. And it happened really fast. It was like, we're fetching birds, and all of a sudden I send him and he doesn't want to go. And then he gets the bird and his body language just changes. And I went, there's something wrong with my dog. And we were done. And the guys are like, dude, take your dog. We'll get the decoys. We'll get all this stuff. Loaded him in the truck and I bombed for home. Grabbed my bird so we were legal and bombed for home. Put him in a warm shower and I was on it. But it's real easy to get caught up in the hunt and not pay attention. I mean, the obvious stuff on that hunt, you walk up to that river and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is dangerous.
Yep.
It's the less obvious stuff where it's hypothermia. It's those ice chunks floating down the river that if they're small and slushy, most dogs can handle those.
Yep.
It's the ones that are hard, that weigh 200 pounds and are coming down the river at 15 miles an hour. That'll kill your dog.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not careful.
Yep.
So knowing when not to hunt. And that hunt was on the bubble.
Yeah.
And then when we got down there in the daylight, because I remember saying it at the trucks, I don't know, guys.
Yeah.
Let's go find out. And we were not going to force it.
No.
And we got down there and it was like, oh my gosh.
This is perfect.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
You could not have asked for a better last day.
No.
Just in condition. I mean, like you said, it wasn't negative 50 or 18. It was 18 degrees. It had warmed up. It was perfect. It was like it was a playbook.
Right. And a lot of times in the cold conditions where you're hunting extreme cold, I don't even worry about going out first thing in the morning.
No.
The birds don't fly well when it's that cold.
No.
If it's 20 below or 15 below, or my rule is colder than 0.
Yeah.
A lot of guys would say colder than 10. But for us here, if it's above 0, we're probably going to hunt.
Yeah.
And we're going to be prepared. We're going to have blankets for our dogs to sit on, or a horse pad, something to help keep those dogs warm. Take a towel, dry them off in between birds, and then have treats to keep their body temperature going and that motor fueled.
Exactly.
And paying attention. But a lot of times when it's real cold, your best hunting is in the middle of the day when it's warm.
Yeah.
On these rivers out here.
Yep.
Those birds get up, they fly around. When it's that cold, those birds are in survival mode. And they're just trying to make it to the end of the day.
Yep.
And they don't move around much. So I just had Greer Smith from 50 Ducks on the podcast. Phenomenal podcast. Phenomenal program that he's got going with all the radio telemetry and GPS telemetry stuff, studies that he's doing. Guys, go check out 50ducks.com. He's got an app now that's out. Super cool real-time monitoring of birds. And one of the things that he talked about was that they're uncovering behaviors in ducks and waterfowl in general that is kind of interesting. And he's like, those birds don't move near as much as you think they do. And when it's real cold, they might not move at all.
Yep.
They're hunkered down, sitting on an ice shelf, trying not to die, basically.
You know, one of the best things in that coldest weather, I was looking through my pictures the other day, and we had, it was December, 2nd, 5 years ago. We had a nasty storm come through, and I took a couple kids out, and it was just a stomper of a morning. We couldn't see 20 feet in front of us, but the birds wanted to be in a field. And, I mean, it was just simple.
They got to get that food.
Exactly.
When it's that cold, they got to get that food.
You know, the gnarlier the weather normally is the better for movement.
But cold is different.
Correct.
You know, cold is different. When you get deep cold, and I'm talking below 0 cold, a lot of times those birds don't move until those warmer temps. And it might only warm up 10 degrees.
Correct.
It might go from 0 to 10, but your bird movement's going to be in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, I'm not going to take my dogs out in the dark when it's 0 or below 0. I'm going to wait. Yeah. Go get some breakfast. Go spend time with your buds. Go to the cafe. Get something to eat. Get your dogs fired up and ready to go. Get them fueled up for the day. Go down to the blind about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
When it's that cold.
Yes.
This episode's brought to you by Federal Premium Ammunition. You know, I've been shooting Federal for a lot of years, guys, and I can't say enough good things about them. Everything from the TSS Black Cloud loads to the Blue Box Steel, and now the heavy bismuth loads that they have, and of course the traditional tried and true Black Cloud FS steel. They got a load for everything. Last year I had a chance to put some of the new stuff through the paces, and I cannot speak highly enough about it. It swats birds out of the sky, gives me awesome patterns, and with the new heavy bismuth, I can use some of my old shotguns in the field as well and not have to sacrifice performance. So guys, when you reach for shells this year, reach for Federal Premium. Obviously, it's different for different people. Guys in the South are going, "You're stupid. What are you talking about? It doesn't get 30 below down there, and it does here."
Yeah.
You know, you see videos on there, and I have to chuckle a little bit because I'm like, it's really cold, man. It's like 25 degrees. But 25 degrees in Alabama or Mississippi is way different than it is. 25 degrees in Wyoming is like a hoodie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's dry.
Exactly.
Down there.
25.
Right to
wet.
your bones, dude.
Man.
Just cold. So,
yeah.
Anyway, I guess if you take anything out of this, it's to be paying attention and know your limitations and know your dog's limitations.
Yes.
And this hunt that we're talking about was right on that cusp of like, do we go?
Yep.
We went.
But we went in with it with an open mind.
Yes.
That there would be a potential that we weren't going to hunt.
Right.
Because of the conditions.
Because even when Tyler and I got done breaking ice, I was like, this is doable.
Yeah.
And then,
And you know, having that ability of knowing, well, we hunt together for one.
Right.
And if somebody's got a gut check of, guys,
yeah.
You know, having that ability, it's not a paid guided hunt.
Right.
Where we're trying to make money off of this. Now, with Wingman, yes, you needed content. Now, does that mean we're going to sacrifice?
No. Like you said earlier, there's no amount of money that's worth my dog's life.
Correct.
There's no duck or goose or pheasant or whatever it might be that's worth your dog's life.
No.
So paying attention to those conditions is huge.
Yeah.
There's lots of little tricks, you know, like we said, keeping your dog off the hard, frozen, cold ground by having a blanket for them or a horse blanket or horse pad, saddle pad. In your case, you always bring one. Tyler always brings one.
Yep.
Having whether it's a heater, having some high octane food, some snacks for that dog. Now, I'm not going to feed him a meal, obviously, but little snacks.
Oh, yeah.
Keep that fire burning. And then having the presence of mind.
Yeah.
To be like, this is too much, or, we're good.
And it's no different than us. You know, if we're not wearing the right gear, if we aren't ready, we didn't eat well the night before, we don't have any fuel, we're going to get cold.
I mean, and when those hunts come, I'm donning the warmest Cryptek stuff that I have.
Yeah. Exactly.
100%. I'm going to make sure that the Weatherby shotguns got light oil instead of
heavy
grease.
oil.
You know, I'm going to make sure that, that's one great thing about all the federal ammo is it just goes bang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But tough conditions are tough conditions.
Oh,
and gear fails, dogs fail, people fail. And so having stuff as dialed as you can possibly get it is huge.
Yes.
For sure.
No,
for sure.
It's an extreme importance. I mean, and that's in any hunting aspect. You know, being prepared, having a med kit specifically for a dog.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a daggone 5-gallon bucket full, but something that you can get the dog. You know,
have some quick clot with you.
Yes.
Maybe have a staple gun. With you, so you could staple a wound shut. You can get them to the vet, and the vet's going to stitch it up anyway, or add more staples to your job.
Exactly.
Being able to head off something very catastrophic is what you really need to be prepared to do. I always carry wire cutters.
Yep.
You know, most if your dog gets in a snare, having the knowledge to be able to either operate the snare and back it off or cut it.
Yep.
Now, all dogs react differently to that. Having a working knowledge of traps.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to get a dog out of a trap before it, you know, especially a leg hold trap's one thing.
Yeah.
Probably not going to mess your dog up, as long as the dog doesn't fight it.
Yep.
It's probably going to be fine. But a body grip trap. Think a 330 conibear that's used for trapping beavers. That'll kill a dog.
Oh, boy.
You know, most dogs are big enough where if they're not going to get their chest into it. No. Most Labradors, most duck dogs aren't going to be able to fit everything, but it's going to get them around the head and the neck.
Yep.
Probably not going to be enough to break their skull, but it's going to close off their windpipe, and you got seconds, minutes at max to get that dog out of there. A 330 conibear is no joke, and unless you know how to operate one or and that can come down to using the rope trick. There's a million different ways out there, guys, to operate a trap. If you don't know, go to YouTube.
Oh, exactly. Get some knowledge.
Get educated.
So that you can see how to get them out of it if something ever does come up.
I wrote a series when we first started Wingmen years and years ago it was a 4 or 5 part series on extreme conditions dog care. And I talked about ice. I talked about hypothermia. We went through everything that you and I just talked about. And even right down to having, for us in these rivers, having the ability to get a dog out of a sticky situation. You might not be able to get out to the dog to grab a hold of it. Having a lariat.
Yeah.
And out in Wyoming, they're a dime a dozen. You can go to any tack store and get a used rope.
Yep.
Or, hey, you know a roper that's got a used rope, he'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Or she'll give it to you. And then practicing just enough. You're not going to be a professional team roper. But having enough to be able to throw a loop 5-6 feet and get it around a dog. And you're not choking them out with it. You're just giving them enough tension where they can pull against it and get themselves out of that ice. Because I'm sorry, as much as we said a duck or a hunt is not worth your dog's life, a dog's not worth your life. Mm-hmm. It's going to be way easier for me to go home and explain, we lost Hondo. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But think about how much harder it's going to be for you to go to my house and be like, Todd's gone.
Yeah.
Because he tried to rescue Hondo and the ice broke and we couldn't get him out.
Yep.
No dog's worth your life. So having that ability to get a dog out. And holy smokes, has this podcast taken a dark turn. But it's the reality of these things.
It is. Yeah, 100%. And, being just equipped for whatever could happen. I mean, no different with you saying I may have to go to your house. No different with you.
Right.
In our health. If we're not equipped, dog, us, everything, it all comes together. And I mean, going with people that are you're fellowshipping with, buddies with.
That you trust. And that you know. I mean, obviously gun safety is a huge one. And I don't hunt with guys that are unsafe.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's not going to happen.
No.
And we could go
another rabbit trail.
We're not going to.
Yeah.
But basically what we wanted to do with this episode, with this podcast, was talk about that hunt. How much fun it was, but the realities of what we were facing.
Yeah.
And it was the last day. There was a lot of birds. It's easy to just put blinders on and just, we're going to hunt. There's lots of birds.
Yeah.
And that hunt, we could have walked down the hill and gone, yeah, this is undoable.
Yeah. But, it came out, with the three of us, me, you, and Tyler, discussing it. It was like, we're good. We're in good shape. Let's just.
As soon as we walked down there and I saw that river had just opened up, I went, oh, this doesn't look any different than it does before we had ice.
Yep.
It's golden. As long as our dogs, my biggest concern was that our dogs could get their feet on the bottom downstream where they always come out of the water.
Yep.
And there's a huge physical difference between Hondo, Mackinac, and Dara.
Yeah.
Hondo and Dara Mackinac and Dara are pretty similar in their physical abilities at this point because Mac was old and Dara's smaller.
Yep.
Hondo can do things physically that Dara cannot do.
Correct.
And that Mackinac cannot do.
The bound that dog can do.
He's powerful.
The ground he covers is just...
And so it doesn't take much purchase for his feet on the bottom for him to jump 5 feet out of the water.
Exactly.
Where Mackinaw's got to be able to get more purchase and be able to get himself out. Same with Dara.
Yep.
We got down there and we were just like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing we did, we walked up, looked, went, this looks good. We walked down the bank.
Yep.
And went, this is cake.
Yep.
We got this.
Yeah.
But it could have been completely different.
Yeah. And just, I'll not fast forward, but move a little bit on our.
We're kind of hung up on it.
Yeah. But, moving forward, the hunting, the birds did it. I mean, they were decoying well. We had some not sky blasting, but there were some higher birds.
It was the last day, and we talk about that. We got some birds that are high, and it was kind of like we killed a lot of birds that were in the decoys, but we took some 40-yard shots as well because it was like, it's the last day, man.
Exactly.
And they're either going to do it in the decoys or they're going to give us a look, and we're not taking prisoners today.
No, we normally don't take prisoners whenever we go.
We try.
I hate to say that, but we do pretty well. We're blessed. But yeah, I mean, the birds worked. 3 of us calling. I love listening. We got to recap the video before this podcast, and listening to us all, we can call together.
Yeah, it works.
It works. One of us will have a high squeak once in a while, but it's
there's part of it is the cold.
Oh,
your calls freeze up.
Oh,
They do weird things in the cold. The other part of it is you get excited. You put too much air through
man.
a call, And, yeah. Oh, what was that? That was a sour note.
But we shot well. Dan got to get a awesome, beautiful goldeneye. And, I'm going to change kind of from dogs to birds.
Sure.
We killed mallards, geese, and then that one goldeneye. Mm-hmm. And we I remember there was a couple of mergansers that were scooting through. And Dan and I were just talking about shooting just different species of birds. And, there's a lot to that. It's, yes, any waterfowler wants to have greenheads. I mean, I love it, in that we were picking greenheads. We weren't, I don't think we shot a single hen.
I don't think we shot any Susies. We try not to.
Yeah.
And some days it's easier to do than others.
Correct.
But yeah, that day it was like, we're shooting all green.
Yep. And I mean, we had the birds to do that.
Yes.
But Dan got just so tickled and pumped about shooting this goldeneye. And, for me, yes, I love shooting greenheads. I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to be like, I don't want to shoot any greenheads. But, shooting a goldeneye, shooting a merganser, shooting a bufflehead, whatever, widgeon, we have a early season, we have a little bit of a more mixed bag.
Yep.
In the season, got a lot of mallards.
Yep.
And, there's nothing better than a group of drakes coming in, feet down, big red feet. I mean, just beautiful orange feet. But, I love it. And for Dan's excitement of no different than a sparkle in my eye with these kids that I've taken, there was a sparkle in his eye and just tickled to death.
Beautiful bird.
Oh, beautiful bird.
Beautiful bird. And there's a lot of folks that have never seen a Drake goldeneye.
Exactly.
In full plumage.
Yep.
And they're a gorgeous bird.
Yeah.
They're, in my opinion, they're not much for table fare.
No, they are not.
And so I try to lay off of them.
But they are good for dog training.
They work great for dog training. You can freeze them whole, keep them, and use them for dog training. You can make them into dog treats.
Yep.
We were talking before the podcast, and Mackinac, like I said earlier, is failing. His diet he's gotten really picky. He's lost a lot of weight, but the one thing that he will consistently eat is meat.
Yeah.
And I don't feed it raw. I cook it, but I don't put any seasoning in it.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of old ground mule deer.
Yeah.
With no fat added, just ground mule deer. And he will eat that.
Yeah.
So that's his diet right now.
Yeah.
You could do the same thing with ducks. With a duck maybe it's shot up real bad.
Yep.
Or maybe you shoot a goldeneye and it's like, I'm either going to mount it or I'm going to take a bunch of cool pictures of it to remember it. And then I'm going to feed this to my dog.
Exactly.
Because I'm not going to eat it. And that's the reason I don't shoot those birds is I don't eat them.
Yeah.
And I still have that very much ingrained in me. If you shoot it, you eat it.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, that's where it goes. Back home we had a ton of mergansers.
Yep. And
they were the common mergansers. They're not pretty ducks. I hate to say that. In my opinion, they're not.
Sure.
They got the flu, but other than that, or the mohawk, they're just not a pretty bird. And they don't eat well at all. I've tried. I've tried every which way. But in the end of the day, it's pick what you can hunt.
Right.
Bufflehead and mergansers back home, being near the coast, we had tons of them.
Yeah.
And they were fun to shoot.
Yep.
You wanted to really dial in your targeting, your shooting.
Dude,
goldeneye, divers,
are no joke.
You got to shoot them right when their feet are about to hit the water.
Yep.
Or they're just, when they get on the water, 90% of the time you can't ever get them because they're diving all the time trying to get away.
Right. And they can you cripple a diver.
Oh, yeah.
In a river, a crippled diver is almost unrecoverable for a dog.
And, even back home in the swamps, wood ducks. And, they are delicious to eat. But a crippled wood duck will dive down. Any duck will dive down and grab something and die, still holding on to that. I've lost way too many birds that they never came back up.
Yep.
and that's just unfortunate.
I've seen it too, Josh, where I thought a bird didn't come back up, and what they do is they'll snorkel.
Oh yeah,
where their nostrils are on the top. All ducks' nostrils are on the top of their head, top of their bill, and it's that wide, and it's sticking that far out of the water.
Yeah,
and you can't see
don't
it on top
see
of the
it.
water.
No.
You don't see it. The whole bird's body's under the water, and it's just that little, and they can breathe enough. And I think if I wouldn't have seen it firsthand, been standing there watching it with a duck in a pond, watch him do it.
Oh, they can full blown swim.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah. And so I think you see a lot of that too. Do you put a little chop on the water?
Oh, you can't see
them.
No,
you can't see them. So birds do that. They'll dive down. They'll, like you said, they'll grab something. Or they'll get tangled and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of them do that snorkel trick.
Yeah.
And that's how they survive.
Yeah.
An animal's an animal, and they're gonna do whatever they can to live.
Oh yeah.
So it's super interesting, but. Yeah, the GoldenEye thing, that was a huge highlight to the day. Dan was really excited about that, which is funny for someone of his accomplishments in hunting to watch him get excited over that great GoldenEye. That was cool.
He was just tickled. Yeah.
Yeah, and just the whole hunt was just awesome.
Yeah.
It was a great way to close out the season, and yeah, it was awesome. And I hope you guys listen to this, you go watch the video, and you enjoyed as much as we did making it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was a ton of fun.
It was.
But, well, dude, thank you for rehashing that hunt and going off in the weeds about, we kind of got hung up on dog safety because it's important.
It is.
And that hunt was a really good reminder.
Yes, it was.
Of that. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening to this episode. Huge shout out to the sponsors of the Wingmen podcast. I want to thank Eastman's Hunting Journals for even letting us do this. I huge shout out to the guys over at Cryptech, what Josh is wearing, Flyway Pattern, phenomenal stuff that they do over there. They got awesome gear, awesome clothes. Federal Premium, you guys rock. Thank you for doing this. Guys, go check out Federal stuff. They have a huge line of ammunition from premium stuff to bargain stuff, and it all goes bang and kills birds.
Yes, it does. Weatherby
shotguns, super excited to be partnered with Weatherby. That new Sorex is a killer. Guys, check that out on the Weatherby website. Loophole, always keeping our eyes protected and helping us find birds on the scout with our Loophole optics. Awesome, awesome stuff. And then to take birds from the field to the table, the guys over at High Mountain down in Riverton, Wyoming, have the best ways to spice things up, man. No pun intended. Just made a bunch of goose brats. That video is on the YouTube channel. Just super thankful for our partners. They allow us to do what we do. And a huge thank you to you guys as well. We couldn't do what we do. We couldn't bring you this content without your eyes and ears. Pass this along, guys. If you like what we're doing here, recommend it to somebody. Share what we're doing so we can continue to grow this channel and to grow this podcast and grow our media so we can continue to bring you the content that you want to see and hear. Until next time, we'll see you in the field.